I am Andy Thorai. Yep, that's Thorai with an AI, a VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering all things AI and ML related.
And I'm Doug Henshin, VP and Principal Analyst, covering data to decisions, and that includes AI and ML for business decision making. And we're your co-host for episode 23 of Constellation Research TV.
We're here to share the latest news, trends, and futures on the enterprise tech.
And we're in for a double-barreled cloud episode this week as we recap the big announcements from AWS reInvent last week. We'll start with AI and ML and the news discussion with Andy. And later in the show, I'll go deep with Holger Mueller in a segment called reInvent Reflections.
Also on the show, we'll share the stories of 2 Supernova Award winners from our last CCE 2021. That's at Half Moon Bay, my first CCE. But first, let's talk about the news, man. Doug, what's new in your world since the last episode of CRTV?
Well, Andy, at the top of the news has to be the major AWS outage on Tuesday in the U.S. East 1 region in Northern Virginia. Not only did it take down selected AWS services and Amazon warehouses and delivery capabilities, it also caused problems for AWS customers, including Disney+, Netflix, Slack, the Robinhood stock trading app, and Coinbase, the large cryptocurrency exchange. Now, the exact cause of the outage is not known at this recording, but the one thing that wasn't affected, the ability to buy products on Amazon.com. So we know where their priorities lie. I'm sure we'll have a full postmortem available at the end of the week. As for reInvent, we had 5 Constellation analysts live and in person at AWS reInvent last week. So we really covered the landscape. But from my world, the big announcements were new serverless deployment options for Redshift, EMR, that's Elastic MapReduce, and MSK, that's their Kafka service. The most significant there is Redshift, where AWS goes toe-to-toe with Snowflake, and kind of a response to Snowflake's serverless capabilities. They also announced a Redshift data marketplace, another clear response. Snowflake making a lot of hay out of their data marketplace. They also went GA with QuickSight Q, that's NLQ for BI and analytics. But in my view, the most important play for natural language query is going to be beyond the reports and dashboards, burying NLQ as a utility within any application and get your analytics there, not going off to separate reports and dashboards. Andy, what did you like at reInvent?
So there were too many noteworthy announcements on the AI ML side of things at the reInvent. We might not be able to talk about all of that, but I'm going to be doing a blog, maybe a video, a combination of both. But here's a quick recap. Number 1, Amazon SageMaker Studio Lab, which is the light version of the SageMaker Studio based on Jupyter Notebooks. It's a free ML development environment to experiment. Simple setup, no account needed. This is to compete against the Google Colab environment. Number 2, Amazon SageMaker Canvas. No code option to build and train the ML models. Basically, you're moving the AI and ML experimentation out of the data scientist to the business analyst world. That's the democratization of AI and ML. Number 3, Amazon SageMaker Serverless Inference. Deploy the ML models per use basis for inference. Anywhere, anytime, pay only what you need. No need to provision, scale up, and worry about managing the infrastructure. There are 2 more, SageMaker Ground Truth Plays and the Graviton Tree. We won't have time to talk about it. I'll write in my blog. But my quick take on overall all of this, most of the announcements are incremental, not very innovative, nothing groundbreaking. But it's a step in the right direction, though. They're trying to democratize AI and ML. They're trying to have people move the AI and ML workloads. That's my take.
Great. I thought when they started to talk about democratizing machine learning, that it might be in QuickSight, which they were talking about when they got onto that topic. I was kind of surprised that SageMaker Canvas is the place. SageMaker is a data scientist studio. To my mind, they should look at adding a simplified ML in the world of QuickSight, where more of those democratized people live. Anyway, that's it for this week's news summary. Next up, we'll hear about Supernova Award winner Watami Company. Then I'll talk to Holger Mueller, our most experienced cloud analyst, to share deeper insights on AWS reInvent Reflections. And that will be followed by Andy's in-depth interview with Steve McEnany of Supernova Award winner Midwest Wheel. Hi, this is Doug Henshin of Constellation Research, and we're here with Shigeru Wakabayashi, CIO at Watami Company, winner of the 2021 Supernova Award in the Tech Optimization category. Also with us is Rumi Kashugi, Customer Success Manager of Infor, who was the supporting vendor for Watami Company, and she's here also to translate for Shigeru. Now, Watami Group operates more than 1,000 restaurants and meal delivery outlets and other businesses in Japan. And the challenge it had was its patchwork of complex legacy systems couldn't accommodate new data-focused business strategies aimed at reforming merchandising, digitizing raw material and product inventory, improving order forecasting, and enabling food traceability. So implementing Infor SaaS applications, Watami was able to optimize its manufacturing and supply chains and make data-driven decisions. And the return on investment was $300,000 in 2019, and it exceeded $3 million in 2020. So Shigeru, your starting point was overcoming old complex legacy systems. But what was the impetus for setting the new data-driven goals? Did you have competitive threats, or was growth a problem? Did you have new governance requirements? Why did Watami decide that change was needed?
わかりました。そうですね。私が今、このワタミに来る前に30年ほど、システム提供側である SI 業者、SI 事業の方にいました。
I have been obsessed with the system integrator business for over 30 years, and I have been thinking about what I need to do to change it into a more noble enterprise. There are two answers to those questions.
そこでいろいろ考えてたんですけれども、より高貴な企業に変えるには何が必要かっていうのを常に考えていました。その答えやきっかけが、2つあります。まず1つ目が AI の技術革新ですね。日本では、その欧米から遅れること、約2015年ぐらいから日本でもかなり話題になってきました。AI がアタッチする情報、要は AI が、必要とする情報っていうのは、まず透明性と、それからトレーサビリティ、あとセグメンテーションですね。セグメントの統一がかなり重要な課題であると、いうことであり、良質の、統合 ERP、1ERP ですね。こういったことが大前提になると考えています。あと二つ目です。これは、シリコンバレーとか、よく欧米の企業やってますけど、データミーティングですね。データミーティングをすることによって、実際のなんて言うんでしょう、エビデンスをもとにした、データドリブンな、会議体に持っていくっていう、そういうミーティングに非常にやっぱり先端の経営を感じてました。こういったチェックアクション、こういったことを、先ほどに言った AI ですとか、それから、実際のデータミーティング、こういった文化っていうものを、今回のプロジェクトであるコスモスですね。で、これは、統合 ERP と分析基盤なんですけれども、このコンセプトの一部になっているのは確かです。
Shigeru, analytics seems very important to the success of Cosmos. What were the biggest payoffs of having better insight, both internally and in terms of understanding your customers?
そうですね。やはりセルフサービス BI、これを、欧米型ではないこの日本の産業構造である我々の事業会社側に、定着させて、BI の関係人口、アナリティクスの関係人口が拡大したっていうのは一つの成果だと思います。
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Shigeru and Rumi, and congratulations to Watami Company. Hi, this is Doug Henshin of Constellation Research, and this is AWS reInvent Reflections. I'm here with my colleague Holger Mueller, my seatmate at the AWS Analyst Summit at reInvent the last few days, or I should say last week by the time you see this. New CEO, turning point for AWS. We're going to have takeaways from the Adam Selipsky Swami Siva Subramanian keynotes. 15 years of AWS, 10 years of reInvent. Holger, give us your reflections. Have you been there all 10 years of reInvent, or how many is this for you?
Well, great to be here with you, Doug, talking about reInvent. I was there 9 times. I missed the first time. I wasn't an analyst, so I didn't get an invite. It was a very cozy event, maybe 20 analysts or so. The AR team was doing PR and AR, 3 people, very different than what it was today. But we witnessed kind of like the imploded reInvent, right? So where basically maybe 50 analysts were there, maybe.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So yeah, but glad to have an event in person, and reInvent has become the de facto get-together of the IT industry, something that VMworld used to be, right? People would go to VMworld even though they had nothing to do with VMware, but because everybody would be there, and exactly the same thing has happened, right? I ran across people of competitors, anybody being there basically just because it was a place to be, and it was the biggest event of the year, post-corona.
Absolutely. And for many, their first, not for us, of course, Holger, but for many, their first event with in person. Obviously, everyone had masks. We were in Las Vegas in July with our own event, and not a lot of mask wearing, but very much in vogue at this event.
Mask, the mask are mandated all over Nevada and Las Vegas for indoors right now, so the casinos can only operate with masks. So this is why. But yeah, apart from the mask, it felt like a normal event.
Yes, and it was very crowded over in the event hall. Less so at the summit. I think they got about a third of the number of analysts they would have liked to get. But and for me, it's probably, I think, my 5th reInvent in person. Well, maybe 4 if you can't count last year, 2020. But what were your thoughts? You know, to me, it was lighter on announcements, more incremental, and Adam Selipsky has said as much. It's like we're going to see fewer primitive new services, more consolidation of services into solutions.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of your takeaways, Holger?
Yeah, it's certainly new CEO and had a different feel. It was not so front-loaded, right? So over the time of the 10 reInvents or so, you saw like it was usually the Jassy update would be about the business and opening regions and why the cloud is important, appealing business users. And then Werner had all the technical announcements, and that kind of like moved slowly but steady over to a point where people were saying, like I was saying, like, why should I go to Werner's keynote anymore? Because he's just going to talk about T-shirts and rock bands and so on. So that wasn't the case, right? So Swami had a lot of things. Basically, he did what you should cover, the data analytics AI keynote, basically. And Werner had still significant things. And ironically, Werner was talking about AWS opening eight new regions next year, right? Which never happened before, right? So it was very different. I think it's good that the information is a little more spread out. It becomes more digestible. And totally agree with you, right? I call it the Uber services, right? So they're bundling together many things that were atomic and people were doing a different way to for people to go off life easier and faster. And that's a reaction to the industry. When we take the IoT example of the Twin Maker, that's something which the competition has been doing since a long, long time, right? So it's a good reflection of that. And
so we did see more services, but Selipsky sort of predicted that we'll see more bundling, bringing together of services into bigger things, solutions. The example he gave was Amazon Connect, bringing together all the things around call center into a complete call center solution.
Yeah. And that's what I've been telling, and Jesse knew that my standard question isn't all too complex, too much innovation, and originally 5-6 years ago that would kill us if we would slow down and bring things together. But what they need to do is really do some versioning. I know that's anathema to them, they don't want to hear this, but people have to say, hey, I'm on IoT 2011, or 2011 is local, 2021, right? And this is why I only have this build. 2022 is going to bring this. And that's how the whole software industry is doing that. At the end of the day, yes, they're infrastructure and software, and they have to still learn that. So, but I think they're making progress in that direction right now.
Yeah, and it really with Selipsky, it was also a turning point. It was like marking these momentous anniversaries: 15 years of AWS, 10 years of reInvent. He did a lot of a lot of timelines, how far we've come. Mm-hmm. But it was almost like, hey, he tried to hammer home, we're just at the beginning. We're 10 to 15% of the way there. You got a question at the summit about, are you really just for cloud native companies? And he really pushed back strongly on that, saying we've been really working hard to get these major enterprises that are still tied to their big data centers into the cloud. He cited, Capital One, GE, Fox as companies that are, if not entirely in the cloud now, most of the way there or a long way there, and made a big push with a mainframe migration offering, cutting the time of mainframe migration, the promise, by 2/3. So really now, I think it's the push to get the stalwarts and the really big enterprises into the cloud. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, they're there for everybody. There's no question about it, right? And they made this point for the first time. Every day, 3-4 major enterprises were selecting AWS as their preferred cloud, whatever that means down the road, right? But they really want to be the place in the cloud for everybody there. There's no question about it. And it's good to see. The vertical aspect was a little weaker than with other clouds, but I actually, as a former product guy, give them kudos for that, because I don't want to go into verticals if I still can find things on the horizontal side, because it will always slow down things, right? And there's even fake vertical clouds. We won't mention the vendors here, right? But things like Fleetwise, TwinMaker, and so on, they're all specific offerings. What was missing, in my view, is Jesse even stated the strategy. Every year they're trying to knock off something where IT spend is like significant, and there's a margin of 10 to 20%, right? And this is how QuickSight was created as a BI tool. This is how the contact center offering came into being. This is how the virtual workspace offering came into being. This is how Chime as a collaboration solution came into being. That was not there this year, right? This is interesting, because every year, like clockwork, there was something like this. So it'll be interesting to see if they've given up on this, or this was just a fluke.
Well, we'll definitely see more solutions and bundles. But you started getting into specific announcements. Let's talk about the specific announcements that you thought were, and we both thought were really important. For me, in the analytics space, it's those 3 serverless additions: Redshift, EMR, MSK, their Kafka service, also Kinesis on demand. Really important. And they're playing catch up in a sense. I mean, particularly with Snowflake on the Redshift front. They also talked about a marketplace, data marketplace for Redshift, very clearly something that Snowflake has been making a lot of hay out of. What tops your list, Holger?
Well, still on the general things on specific announcement, right? It's an incremental cross across the portfolio. It's kind of like boring. 3 new database announcements, 6 AI announcements. What is this, right? But that's very important ultimately to get the depth in the offering. So again, as a former product guy, I say this is a good sign, right? This is that someone is executing, not just spreading themselves thin. The Uber servers are coming. You mentioned that TwinMaker, Fleetwise are examples of that. Very interesting. Also, you can say that AWS is now networking. Spin up your private 5G, which is very interesting from a capability perspective, and so important to enable other solutions, right? You want to have Alexas across your hotel, get a 5G network instead of going to the old network infrastructure. And then AWS Cloud WAN, Wide Area Network, with lots of partner offerings, interesting enough. It's the biggest partner play from a horizontal IT function, which has been there. And last but not least, for mine, the big takeaway from Werner's keynote is AWS never really played in low-code, no-code, which we know is tremendously important. And with Amplify, Werner didn't utter the word, right? I don't know if that's the old fear of full code developers, the traditional customers or fans of AWS saying, this low code, no code stuff, or they might take away my job or whatever. By now, in general, in the market, we see that full no code has been appraised by full code developers as well. But they didn't call it like this. But Amplify Studio really pushes them into the low code, no code direction.
So they weren't calling it out as low code, no code.
No, that's the non-word to say. It's like
really interesting, maybe because they're so focused on builders who they don't want to offend them.
Yeah. So stay away from that. They probably have a control group and say, "Can we say it? Can we not say it?"
So, any final words, Holger? I thought it was great seeing you there. It was a great fun. I think it is a turning point year. We'll see reInvent change a little bit. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's we always like to have the same thing happening, right? So we were ready for having a fire hose of announcement from us and NDA on Monday, as in the last years. So we always like to have the same thing. On the other side, you have to embrace change, and there's new leadership in town, right? There's probably going to be more leadership changes happening as a consequence of that, for whatever reason. And it was a different reInvent. But hey, change is good, and we analyze the news, and that's what we're doing. And AWS has put a significant innovation streak again in the ground. But it felt different this time.
Yeah. Well, all shows feel a little bit different at this time. Hopefully by next spring.
I didn't mean the Corona part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're certainly looking forward to seeing you and more of our friends and end users at events in the future. Probably seeing you in the first quarter at a couple of events. So thanks so much, Holger, for joining us, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, I am Andy Thorai. Yeah, that's Thorai with an AI. I'm a principal analyst covering the AI ML technology space for the Constellation Research. You can find me on Twitter at Andy Thorai or on LinkedIn. I have with us here today Steve McEnany, VP of Marketing and Technology with the Midwest Wheel. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andy.
Did I pronounce your last name right?
You got it.
Okay, all right. For those who didn't know it already, Steve McEnany won the CCE award for this year in the AI and Augmented Humanity at our CCE function. With that, I want to welcome Steve to the show. Steve, congratulations on the award.
Thank you. It's really nice to be recognized for such a prestigious award.
So tell us a little bit more about your role and how long you have been doing this at Midwest Wheel.
I worked for Midwest Wheel now for 33 years. Started in the warehouse, believe it or not. I went to college. I worked for the company. Kind of grew up through the company and led the marketing efforts really starting 30 years ago, and took over all the IT just a couple of years after that. So, 30 years of being in the industry, not only doing all the marketing, but all the IT, kind of touching the customer and all the systems on the backside. So it was kind of a unique position to figure this out.
So you said you started this mission because you are tired of hearing, no, the system won't allow us to do that, which way too often I hear from a lot of vendors. You also mentioned that we are building systems around the system to circumvent some of the situations.
Sure.
Talk a little bit more about that hitting the brick wall moment.
The real brick wall for us was the lack of a warehouse management package. We needed to be able to do barcode scanning and being sure the right part got on the right delivery and the right day and have better tracking. And we just weren't getting there, weren't getting the opportunity to integrate with the older systems. And we were on a system for 25 years, green screen, mainframe system, very closed-ended and really tied us down. So people were building spreadsheets and databases and things to try to make sure that customers got what they counted on getting when they were supposed to get it. And that's not good for anybody. You get multiple sources of truth and it just becomes a problem.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, right? I mean, in the industry, it's not often that you hear trucking, tires, parts, HVAC, and other old school companies that are 100 plus years old. I think you're about 100 plus years old, aren't you?
We're 110.
There you go. You went full in on cloud, didn't you? I mean, with that change, and how are you feeling right now? Do you regret the decision, or do you think it's the right one?
Hey, change is never easy. We started down the road and really started making the move to a new business system in 2014. Went live 2015, and really every year after that we've changed systems. We've added analytics, we've added data lakes, we've added now we're up to AI, but we've changed the websites. It's really about a journey. It's not about one day I'm going to just bing bang change the whole company. That day happened in 2015 when we went live with the new system as the core, when every employee in the company's job changed overnight, and I don't ever want to do that job again. Changing everything all at once is hard. And every day, as you move into cloud computing, things get more complicated. And you can integrate more and more systems, which makes those big bang changes even harder. Now, we're in a good place today. I certainly don't regret the move.
Right. Okay. That's not the same thing I hear from a lot of other companies. I'm glad you guys made it. So most companies that I talk to in this old school business, as I call it, they are impacted by the, obviously all of them are computerized, digitized, modernized, however they want to call it, by the ERP and other legacy tools. Some still run on mainframe because the response is so slow that because they are not able to get to the data in there. But this combination work for you? How did you make it happen?
It works great for moving to the cloud. For one, I was spending a lot of time managing back-end servers because speed is so critical when you're on-premise with the older ERPs. Even when we made the move in 2015, we ran on-premise to start, and we went out and bought SSD drive, SANs, and rack servers, and all those different products to make sure that we could run quickly. And as you modernize things, there's always those opportunities where things get slow and you got to reboot a server and things. And moving to the cloud, that takes it away. They have monitoring tools in place and whole teams of people that work on it when you're in bed. I think that's the key. Is your IT team can go on a vacation.
Another thing you mentioned during our conversation, which caught my attention, for sales, you are literally rolling the trucks to customers to sell the truck parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so by doing this, you're able to eliminate the back and forth trips of the trucks going back and forth to sell it to the customers. You improve the customer experience by doing all of that possibly in a single trip or even planned before the trip.
I think the key to the product we came up with was a recommendation engine, and the idea was as a customer tears into a problem, for example, they break a trailer spring, and they call our parts counter and want to place an order, and to keep that conversation going, yes, we've got the spring, but when you take that spring off, you're going to have to cut the U-bolts, so you need U-bolts. And then that conversation is, okay, you're tearing into the wheel end. Are you going to look at possibly replacing the anchor points of the spring, things like that, to try to have a conversation before the customer tears it apart and avoid that, okay, I tore it apart, it's got my shop tied up, now I got to run you another part conversation. And that's where the real pain is. It isn't about price at that point. It's about, I just tied up my shop bay, took the truck out of service, and I got to make another trip.
Right. That thing, right? That downtime. Nobody likes downtime, whether it's IT or otherwise, right? So
it's not just downtime; it's capacity in a shop. A truck shop typically, I think most of them have 5 to 8 bays. When you look at that, you tie one of them up for an extra hour because you forgot to pick up a pair of U-bolts. It's kind of a big deal.
Sure.
If you had the most intelligent artificial intelligence system, you'd say, all right, for this spring I'm talking about, you could either have a 7/8 inch U-bolt or a 3/4 inch U-bolt, depending on the age of the trailer. If you had a CRM system that said this customer doesn't have a trailer older than 10 years, you know that every one of those is going to be a 3/4 inch U-bolt. So you've answered the question immediately. You say, hey, when the customer says I need a spring, say, okay, do you need the U-bolts to fit it? You don't have to ask any more questions because you know the answer. The ultimate information, at some point, you could just ship the parts, right? And not ask any of the questions. But, we're not there yet. I think that right now the point is to suggest the things to help the human on the phone, say, ask the right question.
So you're telling me you're the Google of the trucking world?
Yeah, exactly.
It's scary and good at the same time because, when I make the call, I don't need to know what I don't remember. I don't have to take all the notes. I mean, you know everything about me and you will tell me what I need to do. I love it. I like it. So you also talked about the monthly customer sales analysis using AI to create grades. If a customer move up a grade or down a grade, you kind of analyze that proactively and why that had happened. What can you do to fix it, right?
Sure. AI is really good about pattern matching and grouping. So, for example, if you take your customers and put them into 5 different grades, and they'll each gather up based on the points you build into the model. And then if a customer moves, the grade itself will move up and down based on business and weather and a lot of other conditions that happen. But typically, the customers are grouped together, stay together. They'll either all go up or all go down. If someone moves groups, that's something significant worth looking into. What changed? Why didn't you change the same as your peers? And if you built the model right, you'll start to see the patterns of, okay, well, business changed, they picked up a new customer, things can change. And that's, if you could be there as a service organization and saying, hey, I noticed things are different with you, is there anything we can do to help you with your added business or your lost business? I think that makes you a solution provider rather than just a part seller.
So you also mentioned something about APIs to improve your top line. I actually wrote a piece on this many years ago. Actually, it will be on my blog site. Can you talk a little bit more about it?
So our AI tool for this product recommender is actually delivered as an API we can connect with. So we can send a part number of the API and a customer number, and it'll fire back with what should go with those products. So, for example, if I fed it 800 part numbers that are in a sales catalog, and I said, I really want to have about 1,000 in this, I want to expand it a little bit, it can go through and you send all 800 part numbers at it, and it will come back with a list of the most often suggested parts that were in that list. And having that API tool is just a great way of using it in marketing, which is my other hat, right? And it makes it a lot faster for me to grow a sales flyer and find the parts that are related. Because you can add any widget to a flyer, but adding the widget that they want to buy that goes with the other thing you're selling makes the whole flyer worth more.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for tuning in for this episode of SNA Award winner. I am Andy Thorai. You can find me on Twitter at Andy Thorai and or LinkedIn. Bye until next time.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 23 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode coming in 2 weeks.
That's right. Watch for the co-hosts Holger Miller and Liz Miller, aka the Miller Twins, who will bring you the episode number 24 of CRTV. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Constellation and on LinkedIn. Our hashtag to socialize is CRTV.
Thanks for watching and have a great week.
Andy, is your audio working? I wasn't able to hear you at any point.
Can't hear you.
Nope. Oh, cute. What's her name?
Coco.
I still can't see my logo.
That's all right. We know you're with Constellation, just like we know that your name
And
has
the logo's
AI
on the
in
wrong side too. If it is on this side, one of the
it. You got to get your green screen, man. What's up with that project?
future episode, I got confused. What happened here? Okay. How about my yoga
could
ball in
even-
the back?
You
Yoga
can even
ball in the
raise.
back.
Yeah, maybe get the ball out of there. Hannah wants to know if you practice yoga frequently.
No, that's the idea. My wife suggested by presenting that, but ain't happening.
And we're your co-hosts for episode 23. I'm sorry, I butchered that. Episode. Well, we had.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Andy, you want to redo that?
Yeah, I butchered it a couple of times.
You got
Where do I start? 3, 2, 1.
321, and we're done.